All right. This will be my review of The Walking Dead season 4. Um Ever since the latter half of season 3, the second half of season 3, the show has become very very disappointing. It's taken a major leap in quality. In just about everything, like the characters aren't as fascinating. It's become less interesting. It's become very slow in pacing, and they really just fucked up the whole prison arc in general for season 3. And season 4 is an attempt to try and make up for the fuck up that was season 3. Because they got new people on the directing, writing. I think that's how it went, and I know for sure they got a new showrunner because the guy who was running the showrunner for season 3 really just fucked things up. And now, like I said, this is an attempt to try and get the show back on its feet, get it back on its tracks, and it works and it doesn't work, and a lot of it doesn't work. The problem with this show is definitely, like, I would say the biggest problem is pacing and character stuff. Let's talk about the governor. The governor should have been killed off in season 3, to begin with, but they dragged it on to season 4. What they did with the governor was terrible. Basically, they tried to make it seem like they were going to redeem the character, which I'm like, no, that's bullshit. And then they dragged it on for 2 to 3 episodes, if I'm not mistaken, of him meeting these new people. He was like a recluse. He was like, a man who hit rock bottom. And he met up with this group of people. And a dude who looks like he does, he's got an eye patch and stuff like that, they just accept him in, basically. I mean, they really made these characters look really dumb on this show. And then they drag it on. He gets close to these people, and they start to trust him, and yada yada yada. And then the worst thing happens. He meets up with his old buddy Martinez, and Martinez is a dumbass. Like, he should have known the governor was gonna go crazy. The governor is a psychopath. He's a sociopath. You should have known that the governor was gonna try and kill you and take over your position as this new leader of a new group. So that was just dumb. I thought that was completely unnecessary. Wasted episodes on a character that they already fucked up and should have been killed off in season 3. And it was done no better here. But I will say that when he attacked the prison with the tank and whatnot, that was cool. It was a cool nod to the comics. There was a lot of panels that they took out from the comics, like when they killed off Herschel. Herschel's death is basically Tyrese's death in the comics. So I thought that was pretty neat. That was pretty cool. I thought the overall acting in that episode was really good. Like, the acting is, I mean, they've got a good cast. The acting really isn't the problem. It's the material that they're given to work with. And it's not really great material. So yeah, that was pretty neat. I like what they did with that as far as the whole attack on the prison. So, and the governor dies. And I think the way the governor went out was still piss poor. He just gets stabbed in the back, and then he gets shot in the head, and that's it. And he has a fight with Rick. And it wasn't satisfactory. He should have had a much more gruesome and brutal death than he did. Because in the comics, first of all, after he raped Michonne and stuff like that, he gets his ass kicked by Michonne, and she comes back and she basically fucks him up. She cuts his arm off. She really makes him pay for what happened. And on this show, they killed Andrea, which was they just completely screwed Andrea's character up on here on the TV show. But they killed off Andrea, and I'm thinking Michonne is really gonna make this dude pay, like a real gruesome and much more deserving death that the governor should have gotten. And no, we didn't get that. And I also don't like how they made it seem like he might have been alive again. I'm like, just Just be done with it. Show us that he's dead and be done with it. Excuse me. So there is that whole thing. Now, after the whole thing with the governor, the show becomes boring and extremely bland. I stopped watching the show. Like, I literally stopped watching episodes. I was falling asleep. I'm like, are you kidding me? It was dragged out way too long. So basically, they tried to take the storyline from the comics, the Beware the cannibals storyline from the comics, and they had these signs up that said, because the group basically got separated. You know, Rick, Michonne, and Carl were together, and then Carol, she showed back up with Tyrese and the girls. And we had the other groups like Bob and Sasha and Glenn and all of that. So everybody's all split up, right? After the whole attack on the prison. And each episode is kind of focused on one character. And the thing that Robert Kirkman said is that once this season is done, you're going to feel like you really know more about these characters than you have before. And that's the case, but not really. I still feel like these people are really underdeveloped. You know, they don't really feel like fleshed out characters. They feel really, really underdeveloped. And I have a hard time really caring for them. I really do. I mean, with the exception of Rick, Carl, and Michonne, everybody else on the show, and Glenn and Maggie, but everybody else, I'm just like, I don't really care. Like, Tyrese is really underdeveloped. Sasha is really underdeveloped. Bob's underdeveloped. And I thought the whole thing with Bob, the only thing we know about him is that he has a problem with drinking. Because I'm guessing, since we didn't get this information, I'm going to take a guess that since the zombie apocalypse, he's had this problem. And it probably didn't happen before, or maybe it did happen before the zombie apocalypse, but I'm guessing that was kind of his way of escaping, psychologically escaping what was going on around him. And he started drinking and whatnot. So there's that. But anyway, all the characters are split up, and each episode is focused on each character. And it takes too long. And they have these signs up, and they're going to this new place. They're all going to meet up at this. The whole idea is that they're going to meet up at the end, the season finale, at this place called Terminus. And it says, those who arrive survive. Anybody with half a brain knows that's a fucking setup. Come on now. Like, they really made the characters look really dumb. Like, you should know. You just got through getting up with the group. The governor, you just got done with the governor, and you're going to trust another group, those who arrive survive, and you don't really see much activity around the place? Come on, you should have known something was going to go wrong. So yeah, that type of stuff was just really, really dumb and stupid, and it took so long to get there, you know what I mean? It was just so dragged out. This show really needs to get back to following the comics more. Because if not, I get the feeling a lot of people are going to start dropping off. Like, I really don't want to come back after this season to the show. I'm still reading the comics. The comics are like top notch, but the show is missing a lot. It's really disappointing. Like I said, they need to start following the comics more. Like, I'm not saying they have to be a slave to the comics, but they need to start following the comics and taking more from the comics, because the original stuff that they're coming up with is not nearly as interesting or as fascinating as what's going on with the comics. I can see if they were coming up with new material for the show and it was equally as good as, or equally as compelling as the stuff in the comics, but it's not even near that. It's just plain bad. So, season 5. I'm not gonna watch it right away, but if I hear some good things, I will come back. I will say though, the season finale was better, much better paced. But I don't like how they cut it off at the end, like a cliffhanger. Like, it was just like, And the weird thing about like network television is it's since like you can bite off, like you can show a character bite off someone's neck essentially, right? Bite their jugular, and you can't have them cursing, like they can't say fuck. Like that's so like that always bothers me. I have a problem with censorship to begin with, but that shit always just makes me so pissed off. It's like you can, have all these, zombies, half dead people walking around, and people biting, people's necks off and arms getting chopped off and all that. You can show that. That's fine. That's totally fine for network television. But you can't say curse words like fuck and all that. Like that's such a contradiction. So stupid. Because there's a line in the comic where Rick, he's like, he runs into these cannibals and stuff like that, and he gets real pissed off, and he's like, they're gonna feel real stupid when they find out. And then another character asks him a question. He's like, find out what? They're fucking with their own people. And in his show, he says they're screwing with their own people. That just like, it's not the same. It's not as. It doesn't have that same. The same point comes across, but it's not as strong as like, okay, this dude's really pissed off. You know what I mean? Like, I would have loved to hear Andrew Lincoln say that. That line would have been so good. Like, I think the biggest problem is with this show actually is that it's on the wrong network. This show should be on HBO and not on network television. I think that's the big problem. But that's HBO's problem, because I don't know if anybody's heard about this, but this show was supposed to be on HBO, but HBO turned it down. And get this, for these reasons. Get this, because it was too violent. A network that has The Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, and Game of fucking Thrones. That's ridiculous, right? I'm telling you, that's the truth. That's the reason they didn't pick it up. They were going to pick up The Walking Dead. HBO was going to pick up The Walking Dead, and they were going to pick up Breaking Bad as well. But, AMC picked them up. But still, it's on the wrong network. It should be on HBO. It really should. That way they could really relish and do what they need to do in order to make this show really, truly great. Not just with the violence and whatnot, but just, I think they would have more quality writers as well. Because HBO has some really, really quality writers working for their shows. Obviously such as Game of Thrones, Sopranos, and The Wire, Boardwalk Empire, stuff like that. So there's that. But my overall thoughts on this season is just really, really disappointing. I may come back if I hear good things, but as a whole, this season was just it's a real big misstep, missed opportunities, and it's really sad because this could be a really, really great show and then really memorable as something as like Lost or something like that. But it's gone down the Supernatural route. If anybody watches the show Supernatural, I dropped Supernatural for similar reasons. It was just dragged out and bland, and that's what this show's become. But I am still reading the comics, and I heard that they want to bring Negan to the show, and again, I get the feeling he's going to be watered down like they did with the Governor, because Negan's big gag is he has his bat that he calls Lucille, and then he likes to say fuck a lot. Like that's his gimmick. Like every other word he says fuck. Like he says fuck after everything. I'm not even joking. Like that's his whole character gimmick. And how are they going to make that work on a network television that doesn't allow people to use cuss words? I don't know. But it's going to be interesting to watch, I guess. It's going to be funny because he's not going to be able to say fuck. What can you replace fuck with? I mean, damn, that's not new. Nope. That's no crap. Nope. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. And that's my review. I will catch you guys later. What did you guys think about this season? Did you feel opposite of me, or were you pretty much feeling the same way as I am? And I am out.